You are not here by chance. You are here because you're looking for more than silence. You're looking for peace. Maybe your day has been full of conversations, commitments, thoughts that won't stop. Maybe you felt the invisible weight of worries you couldn't resolve. And yet, now you're here, listening, opening yourself to something that deep down you know you need. Night is a refuge for those who dare to enter it with an open heart. It's the moment when the world's noise begins to fade. The lights dim, the streets empty, the conversations dissolve. Little by little, the rush subsides, and with it the demands of the day. Outside, everything grows still. Inside, there may still be an echo, but it's already becoming softer. Feel the place where you are now. The temperature of the air, the contact of the surface that holds you, the rhythm of your breathing. Do you notice it? Each inhale brings calm. Each exhale carries away a bit of the tension you've accumulated. Your shoulders, your neck, your back all begin to loosen as if recognizing it's time to rest. On this nocturnal journey, you won't be alone. Accompanying you, unseen yet close, will be three voices that have crossed centuries to reach you. Marcus Aurelius, the emperor who sought wisdom in the midst of power and war. Seneca, the counselor who understood the brevity of life. Epictetus, the slave who found freedom in his mind. Tonight they will walk with you. Their words will be beacons, their ideas bridges, and their wisdom a mirror for your own soul. Because this audio is not just to help you sleep, it is to plant in you thoughts that strengthen your spirit, ease your heart, and remind you of what we sometimes forget in the day's noise. That your peace does not depend on the world but on you. That your mind can be a safe refuge even when a storm rages outside. Now, before we begin, I want you to close your eyes and let yourself be carried by an image. Imagine you are beside a serene lake at the precise moment of dusk. The water is a perfect mirror reflecting a sky dyed in gentle tones where the last ray of sun says its farewell. There is no wind, there is no hurry, there is no past or future. There is only you, seated on the shore, feeling how the world calms and how your mind begins to do the same. That's how I want this night to feel for you. A quiet lake, a resting sky, a mind at peace, and the gift of the present. The only moment you possess is this one. This isn't a pretty phrase for a mug. It's a deep reminder. Uncomfortable at times, but liberating. Everything you have, everything you can live, happens now. Not tomorrow, not yesterday, now. Yet think of how often your mind slips away. You're eating, but you aren't savoring. The plate before you is a display of colors, textures, and aromas, but your eyes are fixed on a screen. You read messages, scroll through feeds, think about what you must reply to later. The moment passes by, and you weren't really there. Or you're walking down a quiet street. The sun caresses your skin. There's a soft breeze. The leaves of the trees dance with the wind. And yet you see none of it. Your mind is already in tomorrow's meeting, in the pending call, in that comment you were given and can't let go. It's as if your body were here, but you were not. Marcus Aurelius in his Meditations wrote, "A man's life is what his thoughts make of it." If your mind lives in the past or the future, your life will be stuck there too, no matter how beautiful or painful the days that have passed were. They no longer exist, no matter how promising or threatening what's coming may seem. It hasn't arrived yet. The only place where you can love, change, act, is now. Think of a traveler who, instead of lifting his gaze to admire the landscape, obsesses over the map. He knows where he's going, but he never sees what's around him. The mountains, the rivers, the changing sky all slip by. He lives planning the route, not living the journey. That's how we are when we postpone our attention, waiting for a perfect moment that never comes. The present isn't always comfortable. At times it's full of uncertainty, noise, imperfections. And yet it's the only thing that's real. The now is the only tool we have to shape what will be and to heal what was. When you choose to be here, in body and mind, you discover that life isn't lived in great leaps, but in simple instants. Breathe. Feel how the air enters through your nose, travels through your chest, fills your lungs. Feel how it leaves carrying with it a portion of today's weight. Allow your attention to rest gently upon this moment, like a leaf falling and settling on water without a sound. Now, I want you to do something with me. Close your eyes. Notice 3 sounds that are present around you right now. Perhaps it's the soft murmur of your breath, the distant echo of a voice, or an almost imperceptible noise you'd never noticed. Don't try to judge them or change them, simply acknowledge them. Also feel the contact of your body with the surface that supports you, the firmness, the temperature, the weight of your own being resting. And as you feel it, repeat inwardly, unhurried, I am here now. Let those words be not just a thought, but an experience, because even though everything else slips away, this instant is yours. Accepting the inevitable, don't fight the wave. Learn to float. In life, there are moments when we feel that if we clench our fists harder, if we hold on more tightly, we'll make things be as we want. But reality sooner or later reminds us that there are forces far greater than our will. And when we resist them, the pain multiplies. Think about the last time something slipped completely beyond your control. Maybe it was someone else's decision that affected your life. Maybe a loss, an abrupt change, a door that closed without warning. Do you remember the tightness in your chest, the anger, the frustration? That is the weight of resisting the inevitable. Imagine trying to stop a storm with your hands. You run to the sky, raise your arms, and push the clouds as if your effort could dissolve them. But no matter how hard you struggle, the storm will run its course. And the more you exhaust yourself trying to stop it, the less strength you have left to seek shelter and wait for it to pass. Let me tell you a story. A man worked for years at a company he considered his second home. He knew everyone's name, stayed late, and believed his effort would make him indispensable. One day, without warning, the company closed. First came denial. This can't be happening. Then anger. After all I gave, this is my reward? For weeks, he lived with a heart full of bitterness, but one day, exhausted from fighting what was already a fact, he allowed himself to accept it. He told himself, this has already happened, I can't change it, but I can decide what to do now. With that shift, he found a new job. One that not only allowed him to live with more ease, but gave him time for his family and himself. What at first felt like an injustice ended up being a new beginning. Epictetus put it plainly, do not seek to have events happen as you wish. Wish them to happen as they do, and all will be well. Accepting does not mean giving up. It is not resigning yourself to a bitter fate. It is an act of intelligence and freedom. Recognizing where our control ends and where life begins to flow on its own. When we stop spending energy on the impossible, we regain strength for the possible. We can learn, adapt, move forward. Like the swimmer who stops fighting the current and begins to use it to his advantage, advancing with less effort and more direction. I invite you to reflect. How much of your current exhaustion comes from trying to control what was never in your hands? How many times have you postponed your peace while waiting for something external to change? Close your eyes for a moment, take a deep breath, and ask yourself honestly, what is it that I've been trying to control, and that maybe it's time to let go? The power of the mind. Rule your mind, or it will rule you. This is not just a warning, it's a truth the Stoics understood centuries ago, because although we cannot always choose what happens to us, we can always choose how we interpret it, and that choice changes everything. Picture this scenario. Two people are waiting for the same flight. Suddenly, the loudspeaker announces there will be a delay of 2 hours. The first person sighs with frustration, checks their watch compulsively, complains out loud. In their mind, those 2 hours are a theft, an injustice, an obstacle. The second person, by contrast, smiles slightly, settles into their seat and takes out a book they hadn't opened in a long time. For them, those 2 hours are an unexpected gift, a chance to rest and enjoy something they like. The fact is identical. The experience is completely different. Another example. You receive a critique. Someone points out a mistake you made. If your inner judgment sees it as an attack, it will hurt, put you on the defensive, and maybe close you off from learning. But if you interpret it as an opportunity to improve, the very same sentence can become a door to growth you wouldn't have reached otherwise. Marcus Aurelius said it clearly. If you are distressed by anything external, it is not the thing itself that troubles you, but your judgment about it. Facts are neutral. It is our mind that paints them with the colors of our interpretation. Imagine your mind as a garden. Each thought is a seed. Some seeds are flowers, others are weeds. You can't always prevent a seed from arriving on the wind, but you can decide which ones to water. If you devote your attention and energy to thoughts of resentment, fear, or anger, those plants will grow and multiply, taking up all your inner space. But if you water seeds of gratitude, patience, and understanding, little by little your garden will fill with life, color, and calm. Training the mind isn't a one-day affair, it's a constant practice. It's pausing before reacting and asking yourself, what story am I telling myself about this? It's recognizing that most of our suffering doesn't come from what happens outside, but from what we allow to grow within. And here's something powerful. When you begin to change your judgment about things, not only does your inner experience change, your way of acting in the world changes too. The person who sees an opportunity in a delay acts more calmly. The one who learns from a critique improves more quickly. The one who tends his mental garden not only lives better, but makes life more pleasant for those around him. If today you feel your mind dragging you toward troubling thoughts, remember you can take the reins. It won't be easy at first, but each time you choose a more useful thought, you are training your freedom. And to close, listen to these words from Marcus Aurelius. Your mind will be the color of your thoughts. Choose carefully which colors you want to paint your life. Impermanence and detachment. Everything you love is on loan. This isn't a threat. It's not a curse. It's the way life reminds us that nothing belongs to us entirely, that every moment, every person, every object is a visitor in our story. When we cling tightly to what we have, love turns into fear. Fear of losing it. Fear that it will change. Fear that one day it won't be there. And that fear ends up stealing the calm we could feel by simply enjoying it while it's with us. I remember a simple tale but full of meaning. A grandfather took his grandson to a field in springtime. Among the flowers, they gently caught a few butterflies and placed them in a glass jar. The boy watched, fascinated. Their wings were like tiny works of art, alive, vibrant. "Grandpa, I want to keep them forever," the boy said. The grandfather smiled and asked him to open the jar. "But what if they fly away?" the boy asked, afraid. "They will," the grandfather replied, "because their place is in the sky, not in this jar, and that's the true beauty, to be able to have something for a while and love it so much that you allow it to go when the moment comes." So it is with life. Seneca wrote plainly, "Nothing belongs to us. Everything is on loan from nature. What we love is entrusted to us for a time, and when it's our turn to give it back, we can do so with gratitude instead of resistance." Imagine you're holding sand in your hands. If you close them tightly, the sand slips through your fingers more quickly. But if you keep your hand open, the sand remains a little longer, resting softly until wind or time chooses to carry it away. Such are our relationships, our possessions, even our own life. The more we try to hold them by force, the sooner we feel them slipping away. Letting go is not forgetting. It is not erasing the memory or denying the affection. Letting go is honoring what was, thanking it for what it gave us, and allowing it to rest in the place where it now belongs, the past. And in doing so, we free ourselves from the weight of resistance. I've seen how at times parting with something material becomes a deep lesson in detachment. A woman kept for years a musical instrument that had belonged to her father. She cared for it, but never played it. One day she decided to donate it to a school so others could learn with it. When she handed it over, she felt a lump in her throat, and at the same time immense relief. It was as if the instrument had come back to life, as if by letting it go she had better honored the love she felt for her father. Detachment doesn't cool love, it purifies it. It reminds us that nothing we value is guaranteed, and that precisely for that reason we must live it with attention, gratitude, and devotion while we have it. Quiet strength. You are stronger than you think. You may not always remember it. There may be days when doubt and fatigue make you think otherwise, but real strength is not the kind that shouts or imposes. It's the kind that remains silent and still sustains. True strength isn't measured in dramatic gestures or harsh words. It's measured in the capacity to stay steady while the storm roars around you. In the serenity of one who, even while feeling fear, chooses to move forward. In the mettle of one who, faced with injustice, chooses not to fall into rage but into clarity. Think of Marcus Aurelius. He ruled Rome during one of the most difficult periods in its history. Plague devastated the cities, the borders burned with constant wars, and internal tensions threatened to bring down the empire, and yet his meditations, written not for publication but for himself, reveal a man who, despite the chaos, sought to keep calm, perspective, and compassion. He didn't raise his voice to impose himself. He sought to govern his own mind first. Quiet strength is like a controlled fire. A fire that, instead of ravaging, gives warmth. That illuminates without blinding. That comforts without destroying. It does not need to prove its power because its power lies in its balance. Epictetus summed it up in a phrase that has survived centuries. It's not what happens to you, but how you react that matters. What happens to us can change from one day to the next, but what we do with it, that is our ground, our realm. You may think that strength is rare, reserved for a few, but it isn't. We all carry within us that capacity for resilience. It appears when we least expect it, sometimes in the very moments we thought we would break. It's in the time when, despite the pain, you cared for someone who needed you. In that day when, though you wanted to give up, you took one more step. In the night when, despite sadness, you found a spark of calm to sleep. I want us to do something together now. Close your eyes. Breathe deeply, letting the air fill your lungs and release it slowly. Remember 3 moments in your life when you were stronger than you believed. It doesn't matter whether they were great challenges or quiet battles no one else saw. Briefly relive those sensations, the weight you carried, the doubt you felt, and the strength that appeared anyway. Allow that feeling of solidity to move through your body. Feel it wrap you from feet to head like a light yet firm armor. Keep that strength within you, not to show it off, not to impose yourself, but to know it's there, waiting for you whenever you need it. And as you prepare to continue this night journey, remember, no matter the storm you face, there will always be within you a fire that burns in silence, and that no one can extinguish. Calm in uncertainty, do not fear what you cannot foresee. Our mind, sometimes with the intention of protecting us, creates stories about the future. Stories full of possible scenarios and all too often tinted with fear. It's as if we believed that by imagining the worst, we'll be ready to face it. But the only thing we achieve is wearing ourselves out ahead of time. Fear of the future is like paying a debt that may never arrive. It robs us of energy, distracts us from what we have today, and leaves us exhausted when we truly need to act. Remember that the future, like the past, does not exist outside your mind. Marcus Aurelius put it plainly. Remember that the future and the past do not exist, only the now. Tomorrow is an idea, a possibility that has yet to take shape. Let me tell you a brief story. A sailor found himself on the high seas, surrounded by fog. The horizon had disappeared and the sky blended with the water. He could feel the shifting wind and hear the creak of the ship's timber, but he could not see what awaited him beyond. Instead of panicking, he trusted his compass. He knew he couldn't control the wind, but he could adjust his sails. He didn't need to see the entire route to keep moving. It was enough to know that step by step he was maintaining the right direction. Life is very much the same. We want certainties, but the only thing we truly have is the capacity to move in the direction we believe is right today. The rest will always be uncertain. Imagine sailing through a dense fog. You can see only a few meters ahead, and although your mind wants to see the entire coastline, it isn't necessary. Those few meters of vision are enough to advance. Each stretch you travel reveals the next. That is how we live, one instant, one step, one decision at a time. Accepting uncertainty is not giving up. It's recognizing that life is not a problem to be solved, but a path that unfolds as you walk it. When we stop demanding guarantees from life, something curious happens. We begin to live more lightly. Serenity in the face of the unknown doesn't come from controlling it, but from trusting that whatever happens, we'll have the resources to face it. And those resources, your capacity to think, adapt, feel, are already with you right now. Ask yourself a question. If you knew the outcome would be good, how would you live this moment of uncertainty? Perhaps the answer will show you that much of your anxiety comes from stories that haven't happened yet, and that while life writes the rest, you can choose to live this chapter calmly. Virtue as a guide. Virtue is your greatest treasure. For the Stoics, no wealth, fame, or power can compare with living in accordance with virtue. And when we speak of virtue, we don't mean something abstract or unreachable. We mean 4 very concrete pillars that can guide any decision: wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance. Wisdom teaches us to distinguish what depends on us from what doesn't, so we can focus our energy on what we can change. Justice impels us to treat others with fairness, recognizing their dignity, even when it's easier to look away. Courage gives us the strength to act in spite of fear, facing trials without running from them. Temperance helps us maintain balance, avoiding excesses that cloud our judgment and wear down our peace. Imagine an everyday situation. Someone offers you an unfair advantage, a shortcut that would benefit you but harm others. The temptation is there. It could save you trouble, bring quick gains, make your path easier. But virtue whispers that what's right isn't always what's most comfortable. If you listen to that voice and refuse what isn't just, you may lose something external: money, time, recognition, but you gain something far more valuable: the tranquility of knowing you acted according to your principle. Seneca put it simply and decisively. Virtue is the only good. Everything else, wealth, health, fame, can change or disappear. But virtue is the one treasure that doesn't depend on external circumstances, because it is born and sustained within you. Virtue is like a compass that always points north, regardless of the weather. You may find yourself in the midst of a storm, not knowing what will happen tomorrow. But if you follow the needle of your moral compass, you'll know that each step you take is aligned with what you believe is right. The compass won't spare you the journey, but it will ensure you don't lose your way. Living with virtue doesn't mean you'll always win by the world's standards. You may lose opportunities, others may see you as naive. You may feel the straight path is longer and lonelier. But inside, in the place where no one else can enter, you'll have a serene certainty. You did what was right, and that certainty is a kind of wealth that neither time nor adversity can take from you. The price of virtue may at times be high on the outside, but on the inside it's always a gift. Peace of conscience isn't bought with money, and self-respect isn't traded in any marketplace. To close, keep these words from Epictetus. The good person does not fear losing what does not belong to him. And remember, virtue is the only thing that always belongs to you, because it is born of you and depends only on you. Inner silence. Not everything deserves a response. In a world that applauds quick reactions, silence can seem strange, even weak. But the Stoics knew that often keeping quiet isn't a lack of response. It is the best response. We live surrounded by stimuli that push us to react. News that outrages, messages that provoke, arguments that invite us to raise our voice. And yet each time we react impulsively, we give up a bit of our calm, as if handing over gold coins in exchange for nothing. Think of an everyday example. You're scrolling through social media and you see a comment that's unfair, offensive, or just provocative. The first reaction is to reply, to prove you're right, to make your point clear. Imagine that instead of doing so, you choose to close the app, breathe, and devote your attention to something more valuable to you. In that instant, you've recovered your time, your energy, and your mind. And the world keeps turning without you losing anything essential. Epictetus reminded us, it is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows. Silence, far from being passivity, is an open space where we can listen, observe, and understand better. When we keep quiet, we not only avoid feeding external noise, we also diminish the inner noise that keeps us from thinking clearly. Imagine a lake. When its waters are agitated, they reflect nothing. Not the sky, not the mountains, not the light. But when the surface grows still, it becomes a mirror that shows everything with precision. Our mind works the same way. In the midst of noise, vision is distorted. In silence, everything becomes clearer. Silence is both a shield and a mirror. A shield because it protects us from the wounds produced by impulsive words. A mirror because it lets us see ourselves more honestly. Choosing it isn't always easy. There's a deep impulse to respond, to have the last word. But each time you decide to keep quiet in the face of a provocation, you remind yourself that your peace is worth more than a momentary victory. Let's do a brief exercise together. Imagine that every unnecessary word you carry inside is a stone in your pocket. Feel the weight. Walking with them tires you, even if you don't always notice. Now, one by one, drop them to the ground. Listen to them fall. Feel the lightness in your body as you keep only the words that truly matter. Silence isn't emptiness, it's space, and in that space, the mind finds the time it needs to see clearly, to choose calmly, to return to itself, turning adversity into a teacher. The obstacle is the way. It's not just an inspiring phrase, it's an invitation to look at difficulties from another angle. Because in Stoic philosophy, trials aren't there to block us, but to show us a path we didn't see before. We often think life would be better without setbacks, but without them, we would never develop many of our most valuable capacities. Discomfort polishes our character the way friction sharpens a tool. Think of the story of someone who, after an accident, finds their mobility reduced. At first, their world shrinks. Activities once simple become daily challenges. But amid that adaptation, something unexpected appears. They begin to paint, first as therapy, then as expression, and what began as a way to pass the time becomes a talent they had never explored. The accident didn't take away the path. It revealed a new one. Marcus Aurelius summed it up masterfully. What stands in the way becomes the way. The stone that blocks isn't there to stop you, but to force you to find another way forward. And in that process, you discover yourself more resourceful, stronger, more capable than you believed. Imagine a river. It flows powerfully until it meets a great rock. It could stagnate there, but instead it splits, goes around the obstacle and continues its course. Sometimes that new channel ends up being more fertile and more beautiful than the original. That's how we can live through adversity, not as walls, but as detours that widen our map. This doesn't mean we should seek pain, nor that everything difficult is good in itself. It means that when the inevitable arrives, we can choose how to face it, as a sentence or as a lesson. And the truth is, many of the most inspiring stories are born of that choice. Like the athlete who, after an injury that takes them out of competition, could have retired quietly, yet decides to share their experience, speaking about recovery, discipline, and resilience. Their talks begin to motivate young athletes and people facing their own battles, even outside of sports. Their obstacle becomes a bridge to others. You won't always know, in the moment, what lesson adversity leaves you. Sometimes you will see only the pain or the loss. But with time, if you stay open, you may discover that moment was a turning point, a seed of something greater. The obstacle is the way, and each time you pass through it or around it, you not only change your destiny, you change yourself. Radical gratitude, everything is on loan. You didn't arrive in the world with anything, and you won't leave with anything. Everything you have now, people, moments, experiences, even your own body, has been entrusted to you for a time. And precisely because nothing lasts forever, everything becomes more valuable. Superficial gratitude is content to say thank you when something is easy or pleasant. Radical gratitude goes further. It also includes the uncomfortable, the unexpected, what forces us to grow. Because even if we don't see it at the time, those difficult experiences also shape us. Imagine receiving a book on loan from someone you deeply respect. It isn't yours, and you know it. You care for it more attentively, protect it from stains and creases, value it each time you read it. In the end, when it's time to return it, you do so with gratitude for the time you had it. We could live everything we have like that, as a loan worthy of care, not a possession we take for granted. Epictetus said it clearly. Happiness is not having all you want, but appreciating what you have. And that appreciating isn't passive. It's a conscious act of recognizing the value of what is here now. Radical gratitude isn't limited to sunny days. Sometimes the rainy day brings the rest your body needed. Sometimes the setback at work opens an opportunity you wouldn't have seen. Sometimes the difficult conversation with someone dear strengthens the relationship. It's not about romanticizing pain, but about recognizing that even the uncomfortable can be a gift in disguise. Understood this way, gratitude is a form of freedom. When you appreciate what you have, be it much or little, easy or challenging, you stop feeling that life owes you something. You begin to see it as a river that offers different waters in each stretch, And you, instead of complaining about the temperature or the current, choose to enjoy the journey. I want to invite you to a brief exercise. Close your eyes. Breathe deeply and think of 3 things from today you feel grateful for. It doesn't matter if they were easy or difficult. It can be something as simple as a warm meal, a moment of sense, or even a challenge that pushed you out of your comfort zone. Name them mentally. If you like, accompany them with a silent thank you. Radical gratitude doesn't depend on everything turning out well. It depends on our willingness to see the value in what we have, even when it doesn't look like what we expected. And the more we practice that gaze, the more we discover that life's loan, though temporary, is an infinite gift. Death as a reminder. Remember that you will die. At first glance, these words may seem harsh, even uncomfortable. But for the Stoics, memento mori wasn't an invitation to sadness, but to a full life. The certainty that our time is finite shouldn't paralyze us. It should push us to make the most of each instant with greater intention. Most of us live as if time were unlimited. We postpone important conversations, personal dreams, gestures of love, thinking there will always be a more convenient later. And yet life reminds us, sometimes suddenly, that there's no guarantee of how many laters we'll have. Imagine someone who receives an unexpected health diagnosis. It isn't an immediate sentence, but it is a reminder that time matters. That person begins to prioritize differently, spends more time with family, says no to empty commitments, resumes a forgotten hobby, and allows themselves to enjoy simple moments without the anxiety of always rushing toward the future. The news didn't change how much time they had. It changed how they lived it. Seneca expressed it precisely. While we are postponing, life speeds by. It doesn't stop to wait for us while we decide when the perfect time to live will be. And paradoxically, the perfect moment almost never arrives, unless we decide it ourselves. Visualize an hourglass. You cannot see how much sand remains in the upper bulb. Each grain that falls is an instant that won't return. You can't stop it or add more sand. The only thing you can do is decide how to live the grains that keep falling. Far from being a dark thought, this awareness can fill you with clarity. When you remember you are not eternal, many things lose weight. Other people's opinions, petty slights, the obsessive accumulation of goods. And others gain immense importance, the people you love, the integrity with which you act, the quality of your presence in each moment. This is not about living in haste, but with priority, about recognizing that your time and energy are limited and precious resources, and that you have the responsibility and the privilege to decide where to place them. I'll leave you with a question that, if you take it seriously, can change how you live tomorrow. If you knew this were your last year, what would you do differently tomorrow? Perhaps we cannot choose how much sand remains in our hourglass, but we can decide what footprints we leave while the sand keeps falling. And that choice, conscious and daily, is one of the greatest acts of freedom we have. Peace over being right. Your peace is worth more than winning an argument. In a world that seems to reward confrontation, we may feel compelled to prove we're always right. But the Stoics understood that sometimes the price of winning a dispute is too high. You can lose your calm, your energy, even your inner clarity. Imagine a conversation loaded with tension. Someone hurls an unfair, provocative attack at you. You could respond, line up arguments, raise your voice, and you might even win the debate. But at what cost? Your heart would race, your mind would be agitated, and you might carry that discomfort for hours or days. Instead, if you choose not to respond, or to respond calmly and without confrontation, you not only avoid a bigger conflict, you also keep your serenity intact. Epictetus summed it up brilliantly. Better to control your character than to win the victory. External victory, the victory of convincing or defeating the other, is fleeting. Inner victory, the victory of staying true to yourself and to your peace, can last a lifetime. Think of a warrior who doesn't draw his sword at every provocation. Not because he cannot fight, but because he knows every battle depletes him. He reserves his strength for the battles that truly matter. And in many cases, he discovers the best strategy is not to fight at all. This doesn't mean accepting injustice or keeping silent about what is essential. It means recognizing that not every discussion is worth the price of your calm. You can defend your principles firmly without falling into the realm of rage or pride. True victory in many cases isn't convincing the other, but leaving the situation with your character and your peace intact. The world is full of opportunities to argue, but far scarcer in opportunities to cultivate serenity. And that scarcity makes your peace even more valuable. Seneca leaves us a phrase that could become a compass in tense moments. Silence is sometimes the sharpest reply. Not because it's evasive, but because by not feeding the fire, you allow it to extinguish on its own. The next time you feel the impulse to win an argument, ask yourself, what matters more to me right now, the external victory or the internal one? The answer will often make the difference between a restless night and a peaceful rest. Inner freedom. Whoever controls their desires is free. It's easy to think of freedom as the absence of external limits, being able to travel where you want, say what you want, do what you want. But for the Stoics, true freedom isn't about what you can do. It's about who has control of your mind and your heart. Sometimes we believe we are free, but we're actually chained to things we don't see as chains. The constant need for approval, the attachment to an outcome, the dependence on others behaving as we expect. All that limits our peace more than any physical barrier. Imagine someone who feels good only if their posts on social media receive many likes. When that happens, they feel euphoria. When it doesn't, they feel anxious or disappointed. Where is the freedom in that emotional roller coaster? In reality, they have handed control of their mood to something external and unstable. Epictetus said it plainly. No one is free who is not master of himself. And being master of yourself means not being at the mercy of what you cannot control, other people's opinions, the day's circumstances, others' reactions. Imagine a boat without an anchor. It may be beautiful and strong, but if it lets itself be carried by every current, it will end up in places it didn't choose. So are we when our calm depends on external forces. The course of our life shifts with every wind, and we rarely feel at peace. Inner freedom is different. It's being able to remain calm even if the world doesn't align with your expectations. It's not allowing an insult to ruin your day, nor a temporary defeat to rob you of hope. It's feeling that your peace is anchored in something deeper than passing circumstances. This doesn't mean living isolated or indifferent. It means that although you participate fully in life and care about its outcomes, you don't condition your peace on them. You can celebrate a triumph without depending on it, and face a loss without being destroyed by it. Ask yourself a question that may be uncomfortable but necessary. What thing or who has too much power over your peace today? Perhaps it's one person's opinion, a goal you haven't reached, or even a habit that feels like it controls you more than you'd like. Recognizing it is the first step toward reclaiming inner freedom. True freedom isn't granted, it's cultivated. And it begins the moment you decide that nothing external will hold the key to your tranquility, the value of discipline. Discipline is freedom. It may sound contradictory. Many see discipline as a cage, a list of rules that limit pleasure and spontaneity. But the Stoics understood that discipline isn't oppression, it's structure. It's the order that lets us live coherently and free from chaos. Without discipline, life becomes a constant reaction to whatever happens. We wake up late because there was no plan. We eat whatever's at hand even if it doesn't serve us. We let tasks pile up until anxiety chokes us. Living that way may seem free, but in reality it's living chained to improvisation and momentary impulses. Discipline, by contrast, is the conscious choice to create a framework that supports what you truly value. You rise early to meditate, not because it's an obligation imposed from outside, but because you've discovered that that moment of silence gives you a hold on the day. You decide what you eat, when you work, how you train your mind, not as imposition, but to align your actions with your principles. Marcus Aurelius left a simple rule that distills this idea. If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. That is discipline in its purest form, acting according to what is right, not according to what is easiest or most immediate. Imagine a river. If it overflows, it sweeps away everything in its path, even what it intends to nourish. But if it's channeled, it flows with force, directs its energy, and gives life to everything it touches. Discipline works the same way. It doesn't repress your energy, it directs it toward what matters. Discipline feeds self-respect. Each time you keep a commitment to yourself, you reinforce the idea that you can trust you. And that trust becomes a deep calm, the certainty that, whatever happens outside, you have the inner tools to stay your course. Epictetus expressed it with timeless precision. Discipline is remembering what you really want. It's not about forbidding yourself things, but about reminding yourself each day what your true priorities are, and acting accordingly. The next time you feel discipline as a burden, remember it is actually an ally. It isn't a chain that binds you, but an anchor that steadies you amid life's currents. And in the order you build, you find a kind of freedom that depends on nothing and no one else. Living in harmony with nature. Flow like water. Nature does not resist the inevitable. The seasons come and go without arguing over which is better. The tide rises and falls without questioning whether it's the right time. Day yields to night without struggle, and night gives way to day without asking for more time. We humans, by contrast, often oppose change. We want what we love to last forever, and what discomforts us to end immediately. But the Stoics reminded us that living in harmony with nature is accepting that everything has its moment, a beginning, a development, and an end. Imagine that you work on a personal project for months, perhaps years. You've invested energy, time, and care. And a day arrives when, due to internal or external circumstances, it's time to close it. It may hurt, but accepting its end is recognizing that it fulfilled its cycle. Just as leaves fall in autumn to make way for new buds in spring, so too must our personal seasons renew themselves. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "What is good for the hive is good for the bee." We are part of an order greater than ourselves. Sometimes what we perceive as an individual loss is part of a change necessary for the whole. Think of a tree in winter. It doesn't try to hold on to its leaves or force its flowering. It adapts, enters rest, and uses that time to strengthen its roots. It knows winter is not an enemy, but a preparation for the renewal to come. Harmony with nature entails this same attitude, adapting to what life brings and finding beauty even in what we don't understand. It doesn't mean passivity, but an inner willingness to cooperate with the flow of events instead of resisting them uselessly. When we align with this natural rhythm, we stop feeling constantly at war with what happens. The energy we once spent on resistance is dedicated to creating, loving, caring, and growing. And that energy, well used, becomes peace. Finish this reflection with a brief visualization. Close your eyes. Imagine you are a leaf floating on a river. The water supports you effortlessly. You don't fight the current, yet you're not at the mercy of chaos. You simply flow, knowing each bend of the river carries you where you're meant to be. Feel the softness of that journey and let your mind settle into that sensation. Flowing like water is not surrender. It's trusting that, like a river, life has a channel that guides us, even when we can't see what lies ahead. Calm is victory, calm is invincible. In a world that seems to feed on speed, noise, and instant reaction, maintaining serenity is almost an act of rebellion. But for the Stoics, calm was neither passivity nor indifference. It was one of the highest forms of strength, the ability not to let others steer our emotions. Think of a physician in an emergency room. Around him, raised voices, equipment sounds, anguished relatives. In the midst of it all, he breathes deeply, speaks with a firm, calm voice, and makes precise decisions. Not because the situation isn't serious, but because he knows that losing his calm would mean losing effectiveness, and that in that moment his serenity is the best tool he has. Marcus Aurelius expressed it with clarity that spans centuries. The best revenge is not to be like your enemy. In other words, calm not only protects you from external influence, it also keeps you from adopting the chaos of those who seek to unbalance you. Imagine a lighthouse in the middle of a storm. The wind lashes, waves crash with force, the sky darkens. But the lighthouse remains firm, casting its light. It cannot stop the storm, but it can offer guidance and safety to those sailing nearby. That is calm, a fixed point to which others can cling, and which you yourself can use to avoid losing your way. Serenity has a silent power. It inspires confidence in others and clarity in oneself. When you are calm, you see more options, make better decisions, and avoid impulsive errors that would be inevitable in an agitated state. Even in critical moments, a heated argument, unexpected news, a financial loss, calm can become your greatest victory. Not because it changes what happens, but because it changes how you pass through it. Let me leave you with a brief story. A merchant watched as an economic crisis struck his business hard. Others around him panicked. They liquidated inventory hastily, laid off staff, and went into debt to cover the moment. He, however, kept calm. He reduced expenses without rashness, sought creative partnerships, and found new ways to offer value. When the economic storm passed, he had not only saved his business, he had strengthened it. His victory didn't lie in avoiding the crisis, but in passing through it with serenity. Calm is not the absence of problems. It is the certainty that you can face them without losing yourself. And in a world that constantly tries to drag you into its agitation, that calm is truly an invincible victory. Clarity in solitude. Well-carried solitude is fullness, and in our culture, solitude is often associated with lack, with a void to be filled in a hurry. But the Stoics saw something different. When it's chosen and understood, solitude becomes a fertile space to know yourself, to listen to your own mind, and to find a calm that rarely appears amid the noise. It's important to distinguish between imposed solitude and chosen solitude. The former can hurt, the absence of those we love, unwanted distance, the feeling of isolation. But even in those cases, we can transform it into something valuable if we learn to see it as a time to meet ourselves. Think of a person who, every morning, has a coffee alone in a cafe. They don't wear headphones. They don't check their phone. They simply watch the steam rising from the cup, listen to the gentle murmur of conversations around them, and look out the window as the sun lights the street. They don't feel that someone is missing. because they understand that this moment is theirs and that it is enough. Seneca put it with a lucidity that endures. He who is content with himself is never alone. When you can enjoy your own company, solitude stops being a desert and becomes a garden. Imagine a quiet well that few visitors approach. When it is alone, the water grows still and reflects the sky with perfect clarity. So it is with our mind. When the external world recedes for a moment, our inner waters calm, and we can see clearly what was previously distorted. Well-carried solitude is not a confinement, but an opening. It allows you to hear ideas the daily noise muffles, to feel emotions you may have postponed, and to ask yourself honestly who you are and what you want. Finish this part with a brief exercise. Close your eyes. Breathe deeply 3 times, feeling how the air comes in and goes out softly. And as you breathe, repeat inwardly, "This moment with myself is enough." Let those words settle within you. Because if you can feel fullness here alone, you'll discover that your peace doesn't depend on who is or isn't by your side. And that is one of the greatest freedoms. Living with purpose. He who has a why can bear almost any how. This phrase, popularized by Viktor Frankl, resonates deeply with Stoic philosophy. It's not about having a grand destiny or a heroic mission, but about finding an authentic direction, something that reminds you each day why you do what you do. In a world full of distractions and external demands, it's easy to get up each morning and simply react. Answer emails, complete tasks, move from one commitment to another. But living like that, without clear purpose, is like sailing without a compass. You can move forward, yes, but you don't know where you're heading. Purpose needn't be something enormous. It can be as simple as raising a child with love, tending a garden, writing a few lines each day that express what you feel, or teaching others something you've mastered. The important thing isn't the size of the goal, but that it's yours and aligned with your deepest values. Think of a teacher who walks into her classroom each morning. Amid forms, schedules, and administrative rules, she could feel her work dissolving into bureaucracy. But she remembers that her purpose is to ignite curiosity in her students, to inspire them to believe they can learn and grow. That intention gives meaning even to the most routine tasks. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Choose not to be harmed, and you won't be." Though the phrase refers to control over our reactions, it also holds a lesson about purpose. When you know where you're going, distractions and external obstacles lose their power to divert you. Imagine an archer. If he shoots without a defined target, any direction will seem the same, and any wind will blow him off course. But if he has a clear objective, his movements align, his attention concentrates, and even the wind becomes a factor he learns to use to his advantage. A purpose is that inner compass that, in moments of adversity, reminds you there is something greater than the difficulty you face. It doesn't mean life is always easy, but it does mean you have a reason to pass through the hard parts with firmness. I'll leave you with a question worthy of your time and your silence. What is the reason that gets you out of bed each morning? Don't rush to answer. Let it ripen. Let it settle. Because when you find that answer, even if it's small, even if it's simple, you'll discover that with a solid why, almost any how becomes more bearable. You have come this far, and that is already an act of care toward yourself. Through these hours, we've walked together along paths of reflection, drawing from Stoic philosophy its most useful lights for daily life. We've remembered the value of the present, the freedom that comes from accepting the inevitable, the quiet strength that doesn't need to impose itself. The peace found amid uncertainty, deep gratitude, the importance of living with purpose, and calm is victory. Each of these lessons shares a common thread: inner freedom. No matter what happens outside, circumstances, other people's opinions, what truly matters and what the Stoics teach us is how we choose to think, feel, and act. That choice is always ours. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Life is opinion." By this he meant that it isn't the facts themselves that affect us, but the judgment we make about them. Change your judgment and you change your experience, and that is a power no one can take from you. Now, as you settle into rest, acknowledge within yourself the value of having devoted this time to nourishing your mind and spirit. You've planted ideas that, like seeds, will grow over the coming days and weeks, perhaps without your noticing at first, but steadily and quietly. I invite you to one last visualization. Imagine that after this night, dawn comes slowly. The sky brightens with gentle tones, golds, pinks, a light blue that announces a new day. You feel the cool air on your skin and sense that all is calm. The sun begins to rise, and with it the certainty that you have a new opportunity to practice what you've learned. Live the present, let go of what you can't control, choose your thoughts, act with virtue, and guard your peace. Breathe deeply soon, and let that dawn stay with you, even as your eyes close and you drift into sleep. Sleep in peace, for your soul already knows the way.